I don't know, they ran 24 hours or whatever it was. It was a number of runs, but that was some years ago.
The 10th Division in World War I. World War I was over, the Army got a lot smaller, and then World War II came along and they had to get some new divisions going. So we were just the 10th Division until we finally got down to Texas, and then they said, well, you've had all this mountain training, maybe we can get permission to put your rocker over the top of your patch with the word mountain on it. The only other units in World War II in the Army that had that were the airborne, and they got a lot of publicity, and they did a lot of wonderful fighting, hard fighting, but we were still quite unique in that we not only had to volunteer to get in, but we had to qualify, tell them that we really knew something about the outdoors, skiing, rock climbing, mule skinning, whatever. So they did have a lot of wonderful equipment. Most of it was based on foreign designs and had to be manufactured in this country, and that was pretty tough during the war to get it done. But we had very few frozen feet. A lot of other units had a lot of men out with trench foot. We did not have that. There are just fantastic stories about what happened in the 10th Mountain Division. Most of them are a little too long to tell here, but if you want to hear some really odd stories, corral me afterward and I'll
Warren, in one of his comments, we never skinned a mule. That's a generic term. Mule skinners were known because they cleaned their hoofs, they backpacked, and we used to do diamond hitch and all this stuff. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. But Warren is so right, because overseas was a new experience for all of us. I mean, virtually, I think all of us, I can speak freely. You know, we're 18, 19 years of age for the most part. And we arrived in Naples 2 days before Christmas of '44. And my platoon leader and myself had a day pass. I don't know how that came about. But we walked, of course, into the town of Naples, city of Naples, and just on the outskirts. But we were ever so dismayed by what effect. Of course, they try to give you preliminary data on what to expect when you get into a war-ravaged country and all this stuff. But anyway, when you see it firsthand, you realize here are these little kids. Little kids running around in shorts, little sandals, maybe a t-shirt. Here we had all big overcoats and boots and hats and all this stuff. They would wait in line at the end of our chow line for, we're having Christmas dinner, of course, and they would take all the garbage and put it into a big can. As soon as that was filled, they would take off. What they did with it, who knows? Presumably someone was eating it, maybe they were selling it, I have no idea. But we walked into Naples and we saw the damage and everything else. It was really kind of scary in a way. We stayed there 2 days, then we went north to Leghorn, then into Pisa and Lucca, then into the front line, so on. But there were, our first casualties that I recall was in Leghorn, Livorno, where there were some soldiers walking along the railroad track and they stepped on a German mine. And they were killed. A priest and his assistant went down to administer last rites. They stepped on another mine. So we were told, by all means, don't walk down the railroad tracks and stay in designated areas. Then we went on from there. But the experiences that we had were never forgotten. And we still, and Warren didn't mention the fact he was seriously wounded, and preventing him from skiing anymore. But you should see this guy ride a bicycle. I mean, up and down hills everywhere, you name it. I don't understand how that works, but anyway. But we came back, and now we have an association called the 10th Mountain Division Association, to which we belong. And many of the guys that we knew do belong, and we have probably 18 active chapters, like the Southern California chapter, of which I was the president. Howard was the former president. I took over for several years. Now we have a descendant, because the descendants, our children, and in some cases grandchildren, are running these chapters, simply because we're getting to the point where it's overbearing or overwhelming. I enjoy it. I had a great time doing it. Still active, as you might surmise. But the association is having a problem, like so many ski clubs and community groups of Kiwanis, et cetera, are having diminishing returns on their membership. So we're all seeking to build those relationships, because it's, in our case, the Tent Mountain Association is extremely valuable to us. And I was never in arms with these guys. I mean, overseas, we met at the Southern Cal chapter. There was only one man that we went through everything together. He's since gone, but we're attempting to reach the roughly 180,000 members of the 10th Mountain Division Light that Warren referred to. The 10th Mountain Division was reactivated in 1985, and in the last 26 years, there have been roughly 180,000 men and women who joined the 10th Mountain Division Light, have served as the most well-deployed division of any in the U.S. Army. They have currently in Afghanistan close to 12,000 troops. They were in Iraq, etc., all over the place. But we're trying to reach these guys and people, soldiers, to have them make them aware of the fact they can join this national association, participate in local events and activities, and continue the legacy that we're all trying to support. So it's hopefully with this public affairs group and other groups like the National Ski Areas Association, and that Troy is working with and head of, to get this word out, to get in touch with these people, because there's no active Army records that gives their name, address, and phone number, or email, and all of it. So that's what we're trying to promote, because that's what we're trying to, because since 2007 to the current year, the members of the association, the veterans of World War II, have dropped by almost 1,100 men. So it tells a story, and so we want to get it supported with the descendants and what we call Friends of the Tent. At our booth, I might suggest that we have applications already. You can become a friend of the 10th Mountain Division, and you get a nice pin, a decal, and an ID card, etc. It costs $20 a year, but you get to participate in any and all of the 10th Mountain Division activities. National reunions. We're having another reunion in Italy. It's a triannual. Next year, 2012. The descendants are running this, but it's going to be a recapturing the combat route that we had from Florence all the way up through the North Apennines, the Po Valley, and up into the Alps at Lake Garda. I've been twice. These guys have all been. And this guy was one who climbed Riva Ridge in the wartime, and again in 1995, I believe.
50 years later.
Yeah, I said, the hell with that. Not me, buddy. So, anyway, we were all in the same regiment, and anyway, but, come to the booth and look at the books and sign up and do our thing, because we love to be here and are part of this organization. And skiing is obviously a very part of our lives and has been, but we envy and look at these. I still dream of skiing through powder like these guys were on video today. Just 4 nights ago, I was just, fantastic. Okay, Howard, you got it.
All right, you shared your story about River Bridge and such.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, yes. Well, this was the first actual combat operation
other than patrols that the 10th Mountain people made. When we got there in the last part of 44 and the first part of 45, they started patrolling around to find out where the Germans were and what was going on. On the night of February 18th, 1945, we just had to go up this mountain. And this wasn't just an everyday mountain. It was a steep cut cliff cut by the Dardagna Torrente. And that Torrente is a mountain river. A fiume in Italian is a meandering river, such as the Sacramento and well, part of Sacramento up in the Siskiyou Mountains is a Torrente. But anyhow, we climbed. We left at 7:30 in the evening. Went down to the crossed the Torrente Dardagna and started up this escarpment. And that's the best way I can describe it, an escarpment. It was dark, of course, and that was so that we had the element of surprise. And it took us with our little route was up 2,000 feet, and it took us till 5:30 in the morning until we all got up there. So 7:30 to 5:30 in the morning, and sometimes the noise scared the heck out of us, because we knew that Germans were on top of that ridge, and if they had been alert, they could have dropped any kind of. See, we were going up single file, and that's really dangerous if you're in the army. You don't go up single file if you don't have to. But that was the only way we could go up this thing, because it was so steep. And anyway, we wind up getting up on top, and no Germans. And and the interesting thing was, as we approached the top of the ridge, a fog came in and completely kept us from being seen while we dug into the other side of the ridge and dug our foxholes and put in our machine gun emplacements and our mortars. And I've always thought that was, even though the Germans had on their belt buckle, and Bruce has the belt buckle, it says "Gott mit uns." I started thinking, sometimes maybe God was with us, because that mist came in and saved us from being seen. We get up there and do that job, and then we start looking around, and we found these dugouts where the Germans were living. Well, they've been in the war for a long time, and I think they never thought, and they said that later, they never thought that anyone could get up that escarpment. And so the wonderful part about it was that we did take the top of the ridge, even though we were making noise on the rocks as you went up, because we had our rifles and packs on, and they'd scrape against the rock, and you could hear it. It was alarming. Well, I was just waiting for something to come back down on me. But it was very, very successful. And it wasn't until later in the morning, we went down after we dug the foxholes. We went down and found these bunkers and places that the Germans were sleeping in. And we had an opportunity to tell them, kommen Sie heraus, Mr. Hanse. Well, and I learned German a little bit at the university before I came over there. And they came out, and they were surprised they couldn't believe it. And shortly thereafter, there were replacements who came up from the valley below. The little town of Sestola and Fanano were down below, and the headquarters of the German army happened to be in Sestola. Fanano was where the troops were, and they came up that mountain, and that was the easy side to get up. They had the easy side, and they came up, and everything was. This is our first engagement, really, in war, and we told all the guys to hold your fire, because we're sitting on top of them. So we told the guys but we brought some of the fellows that had been cooks in, our mess hall, and one of the guys just lost it. He saw these people coming up, and they weren't very close to us, but they were coming right up to us. So it was a marvelous opportunity that we lost when he shot down at them. He shot his rifle, and then all hell broke loose. And they figured out we were there, and they let us know with their very rapid fire machine guns. Our machine guns went chug, 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 chug. Theirs went brrr, brrr. I mean, that was the number of bullets that were that all started over us. And then they knew then we were up there. And so that night, they attacked up another ridge that was right next to us, and we had a lot of casualties, and they wound up with casualties, and we repelled them and their counterattacks, and so we stayed up there until the other group, the main group of the division, went up on Mount Belvedere. And what happened is Mount Belvedere had been before we got there, it had been tried to be taken twice by other army troops, by Fifth Army troops, and they just got shot up something terribly. And that's how we wound up going up the Riva Ridge before we took Belvedere. And our wonderful little wiry Major General who ran our division, he said he had been in the artillery in World War I and had won the Congressional Medal of Honor. And General Hayes said to my battalion commander, Colonel Hampton, he says, "You guys got to take that ridge." So we had to take that ridge, and once we got it secured, then we could see the back of Mount Belvedere where the Germans were coming up and where they were. So then we had really excellent observation. And what happened next was that by the next day, the next night, the main force of our division, that was what was left, they attacked Mount Belvedere, and it was very difficult for them. And they went up at night, just as we had gone up at night, and it was very difficult for them anyway, in that they ran into minefields, and it was horrible what they experienced. But they got up there, and nobody from Riva Ridge fired on them. We had taken it, and so that was a wonderful experience. That was the phase 1 of what we did. They then went into phase 2 and phase 3, and I think, and then by that time it was pretty much, the war was just about over. But we experienced some losses. We lost about 1,000 men killed in action. We lost, I think, 4,500 wounded. And when you think that a division is comprised of so many guys in the infantry that are up in the front line, and also 3 battalions of artillery behind, but they're behind enough that it's a little safer. And then the rest of the forces, we lost a lot of men, and we have a beautiful memorial up on the top of Tennessee Pass in Colorado, which is about 5 or 6 miles from Leadville down, and Leadville is south of where the camp was. The camp is completely gone now, except we have we're now what we're doing now with the camp is it's been declared a National Historical Site, and we the 10th Mountain Division Foundation are seeking to arrange the camp so that people coming up Highway 24 will have an opportunity to see where we trained. And I think it was a wonderful situation. Well, the only thing wrong was there were several bridges over the river, the Eagle River, when we were there originally to train. But they were all gone by the time we got back, and what we had to do, what we really needed was at least one bridge that take us over the Eagle River so that you could see the whole camp. And we finally got that bridge in, and it's a marvelous experience. The other experience on Riva Ridge was our 1995 trip, and it was there was a bunch of guys who were in the main force that went up Belvedere, and they didn't believe this Riva Ridge was that tough, and they wanted to go up there too, and see just how tough it was. Well, they didn't have to go up at night as we did in 1945. So we went over there. We got about a dozen fellows, and I had 4 fellows from my company that joined us, and then the rest of them decided they'd go, and we had just one hell of a good time. We really did, because the Italians, we go to Italy, and we've done it a lot, and the Italians up in those mountains can't do enough for you. They love us, and they'll never, they train their children, and so now I guess their children's children are throwing the parties, and they just love the 10th Mountain Division, and so we've had a wonderful experience. And so I think if anybody here is Italian, there's a lovely place over there, and we love to go there and revisit. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sure that some other people will.
Thanks very much for sharing those stories. It's just truly amazing what they went through, and he alluded to it. The 5,500 people. That's a huge percentage of their division that they lost. And when you think your division's 10,000 people, so that's a very high casualty rate, though.